The desert air was heavy with dust and despair. A Black Hawk helicopter sat motionless on the scorched earth, its once mighty rotors now lifeless against the setting sun. Around it, a team of military technicians scrambled, wires in their hands, sweat dripping from their brows, frustration growing with every passing second. They had tried everything: diagnostics, manual overrides, replacing burned-out circuits, but the machine refused to roar back to life. And time was running out. That helicopter wasn't just any transport aircraft. Inside its cargo bay lay crates filled with life-saving medical supplies needed at a remote base where dozens of soldiers were critically injured. Every minute wasted meant lives slipping away. The technicians cursed under their breath, knowing the consequences if they failed. Their commanding officer's sharp voice only added to the tension: "Figure it out, or men will die waiting." But the truth was brutal. The systems were too old, too damaged, and too complicated for even the sharpest young minds to fix. The helicopter had been grounded for years, pulled back into service only out of desperate need. Nobody alive seemed to know its secrets anymore. Nobody, except one. When the technicians reported their failure, General Marcus Reed made a decision that stunned everyone. He picked up the field radio and muttered a name most of the younger soldiers had never heard before. "Get me Sergeant Jack Callahan." The silence that followed was heavy. Callahan was a forgotten name, a relic of another era. Once a brilliant combat mechanic and decorated veteran, he had disappeared from military life after the last war. Some said he was broken by what he saw in combat. Others said he had simply been cast aside, replaced by newer recruits and modern machines. Whatever the truth, he had been living quietly in a small town, invisible to the world that had once needed him. And now, that world was calling him back. When Callahan arrived at the desert base hours later, he looked nothing like the legend the stories described. His beard was long, his back slightly bent, his clothes weathered by time. The young technician stared at him with skepticism, whispering that this old man couldn't possibly fix what they had failed to. But when his tired blue eyes met the lifeless Black Hawk, something inside him stirred, something fierce, something alive. He placed a hand on the helicopter's worn metal frame, whispering under his breath like greeting an old friend. "You're still here, girl, still fighting." For a moment, it was as if the years melted away. He could hear the roar of combat, the shouts of his brothers in arms, the whir of blades cutting through chaos. This helicopter wasn't just a machine to him, it was part of his life, part of his soul. The general stood by his side, speaking softly. "Jack, I wouldn't ask if it weren't life or death. Men are bleeding out there. You're the only one who might know how to wake her up." Callahan didn't hesitate. With sleeves rolled up and grease on his hands, he climbed into the belly of the machine, his fingers moving with the memory of decades past. Every wire he touched, every panel he opened, carried the weight of familiarity. He muttered the quirks of the helicopter like secrets only old friends shared. "This bird doesn't respond to brute force, coax her gently. The starter relay, she likes a double bypass. And the fuel pump, don't trust the gauge, it lies when she's scared." The technicians watched in awe. What they had treated as a pile of parts and manuals, Callahan treated like a living being with moods, scars, and a will of its own. Hours passed, sweat poured, and hands bled, but slowly the Black Hawk began to respond. Lights flickered, systems hummed, the old heart of the machine beating faintly once again. But then, another challenge struck. The main rotor refused to engage. Frustration rippled through the team, and some whispered it was hopeless. Callahan sat in silence, eyes closed, breathing heavy. He remembered the last time this had happened, in a war zone, under fire, when men's lives depended on it. Back then, he had taken a gamble no manual would ever suggest. It had worked once. Could it work again? He stood and barked orders with a voice that carried unexpected power. "Listen up, I need two of you on the manual crank, one ready to rewire the ignition sequence exactly when I say. No hesitation, trust me, or this bird stays dead." The young technicians, though doubtful, obeyed. They could see the fire in his eyes, the fire of a man who had lived and bled for this machine. Callahan placed his hand on the throttle, whispered a final word, "Come on, old girl, we're not done yet," and gave the signal. Sparks flew, rotors groaned, the desert shook, and then, with a deafening roar, the Black Hawk came alive. The blades sliced through the air, stronger and louder with each turn, until the helicopter stood ready for flight once more. The base erupted in cheers, but Callahan didn't bask in glory. Instead, He simply smiled, wiped the sweat from his brow, and patted the machine's side. Told you she still had fight left in her. The supplies were loaded, and within minutes, the helicopter soared into the skies, carrying hope to the wounded soldiers waiting miles away. Lives were saved that day, not just because of a machine reborn, but because a forgotten man had been given a chance to matter again. When Callahan prepared to leave, General Reed stopped him. You saved lives today, Jack. You're no forgotten man, you're a legend. Don't ever forget that. Callahan's eyes glistened, though he tried to hide it. For years he had felt discarded, as if his time had passed. But today, he had learned that the fire inside him never truly dies. Sometimes, the world just needs a reminder. And so the helicopter flew, the desert echoed with the sound of victory, and one forgotten veteran walked away knowing he had not been forgotten after all.